Hello, everyone, and welcome to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. We have another great show for you. We're going to be talking to the great hard-charging Congressman Jody Hice, who's doing the patriotic thing by stepping away from Congress and running to be the next Secretary of State of Georgia so that we can have free and fair and rules-based voting. Imagine that, rules-based voting complete with voter ID. We're also going to be talking to ACU board member Terry Schilling. Terry Schilling runs the American Principles Project, where they try to highlight the principles that make strong families and make for a strong country. They have a great brand new campaign that they're launching to really try to support strong families across this country. And we look forward to having Terry back on the show. And, you know, it just seems like on a daily basis, we're hearing the Biden administration explain things that just plumb don't make any sense. And I want to show you this clip, which you might have seen from Jen Psaki, trying to explain the reason why there's high crime rates.
The thought there basically that some criminal who has been committing crimes with limited interruption or interference from police for the last couple of weeks or months is going to stop this easy life of crime if they have a summer job.
Well, I think the president believes that we shouldn't allow access to guns to those criminals who are currently illegally buying them from some dealers across the country. And part of his announcement is taking steps to do exactly that. But part of his announcement is also ensuring there's specific guidance to communities across the country to ensure that they have funding to get more community police around the country. Something that was supported by the American Jobs Plan that was voted into law by Democrats just a couple of months ago. Some might say that the other party was for defunding the police. I'll let others say that, but that's a piece. Go ahead.
So I love the Democrats, right? So they always want to spend more money, and they love to just spend it generally. Nothing in that American Rescue Plan had money going to cops. They were just throwing money at local governments, and so that when any problem arises, they can say, oh, we actually had money to solve that problem, but the Republicans voted against it. The fact is, Joe Biden couldn't earmark money to try to change the policies of these radical mayors who have been defunding police programs, because you can't do that in the Democratic Party anymore. Matter of fact, you can't be pro-cop in the Democratic Party anymore. So listening to that is just, I think Joe Biden had a word for that. I think he called it malarkey. That's a whole bunch of malarkey. But Congressman Jody Hice, thanks for joining us again on CPAC Now.
Always great to be with you, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Hey, what's your reaction to this idea that literally the Biden administration had a plan to refund cops, supposedly?
There's no plan whatsoever to refund cops. Listen, they have been screaming the past year to defund law enforcement all across this country. Mayor de Blasio cut the New York Police Department's budget by $1 billion. And we saw that type of thing repeated all across the country in blue states and blue cities. And it was reflected right here among the Democratic Party in Washington, D.C. They have attacked the law enforcement of this country. They have just put them in handcuffs, no pun intended, and really disallowed the law enforcement of this country to do their job. And now we're watching the consequences of it. Crime, violent crime is up all across the country, and it is 100% the fault of the Democratic Party for defunding the police and attacking law enforcement as they have done over this past year.
You know, if you can have a group like Black Lives Matter, we call it Black Lives Matter Incorporated because it's a big business, all funded through Act Blue, which is this activist radical site online where you can give to various left-wing causes, and including Democratic candidates. And when you have as their number one policy goal defunding the police, they never said reforming the police. They never said giving the police budgets a haircut. They said defunding the police. You could have predicted the crime wave.
Oh, absolutely. And what did AOC just a couple of weeks ago also came out saying if we had fewer jails, we would have less crime. I mean, their whole approach to the crime issue is to attack the Second Amendment, attack law enforcement, attack jails, and attack everything but the problem. And you get these types of consequences. For the past year, we've watched riots all across the country. And what did Democrats do? They turned a blind eye to it all, called them peaceful protests while cities were being burned down, businesses burned down, over 2,000 law enforcement personnel seriously injured, and Democrats said nothing but to defund the police and attack law enforcement. You cannot have law and order in a civil society without having law enforcement. And that's the very thing that the Democrats have attacked.
And what's interesting is first responders have always been kind of as American and respected as you could possibly get. It's like baseball and apple pie and moms and all that. And somehow cops got demonized in this process. And what's amazing to me, as you're running statewide in Georgia, is cops are by and large a very diverse population. A lot of them come from ethnic minorities. There's always been this strong tradition of the Irish and the Italians and Hispanics and people of color being first responders. Since when did that not matter to the Democratic Party? Is that odd to you?
It is odd because that's exactly my experience with law enforcement as well. It's a very diverse group, and look, there can be bad apples in any sector, right? I mean, we all understand, but by and large, law enforcement personnel are servants to our communities, our states, and they are among the cream of the crop of the people. And for the Democrats to go after them like they have this past year makes no sense whatsoever. This is a group that is diverse. It's a group who cares about their own local communities, and they're trying to be servants to keep law and order. And to be attacked like they have, who would want to be in law enforcement these days? I mean, they can't even hardly pull someone over for a speeding ticket without potentially being a threat of their own lives these days. It's just horrendous what has been done to this great group of personnel and individuals who put their lives on every day.
No, you're totally right about that. Matter of fact, most of these cities, if you look at the open positions in law enforcement, they're having a lot of trouble recruiting candidates for obvious reasons. If the budget is being reduced, that means their wages are probably not keeping up with all this Biden inflation that's going on in the economy. And if they can accuse you of something and you're basically convicted by the court of public opinion immediately, you have a big problem. But Jody Hice, you're running in the state of Georgia. I assume you're everywhere you possibly can be in the state. At the same time, you still got responsibilities as a congressman. Georgia's a very interesting and diverse state. I'm sure you have people that support you from every aspect of society. When you talk to people of color throughout Georgia, aren't they the number one boosters of cops in the state? And don't the people that work in these communities, including a lot of stress and social hardship, don't they understand that black families are the key for raising kids in safe and happy and healthy environments, and that black churches are key to that as well? When did it get to the point where these things, these Western ideas, were under so much attack?
Yeah, it's an incredible phenomenon that we're watching. I mean, we live in a country that up until recent years, at least, we have united ourselves around certain principles and aspirations found in our Declaration, our Constitution of equality and justice for all. Those have been things that certainly we have messed up on in the history of our country along the way, and yet it is those principles that have kept us going, found in our Constitution, found in our documents upon which this country was established and sets us apart from every other country in the world. Those things we have united around, and they have pressed us towards moving towards abolishing slavery, for example. Would have never happened had we not had the Constitution lifting that dream and that aspiration, that principle before us. And for these things to now be under attack and the cancel culture on top of it, it really is a phenomenon that is difficult to wrap your brain around.
Yeah, and I know you're running in Georgia, and I know there's still rivalries between North and South, not questions of public policy anymore, just kind of like regionalism. But we're proud Republicans, and the Republican Party has a proud tradition of being the party that ended slavery, that gave full civil rights to former slaves, the Emancipation Proclamation, signed obviously by Abraham Lincoln, Republican president. How is it the Democrats are so much sneakier than us that somehow they've been able to get everybody to be convinced that somehow they were the party of civil rights and somehow the Republican Party was the party of Jim Crow? Are voters in Georgia confused?
Well, I think the whole country to some extent is confused because they have the mainstream media that keeps beating that drum as well. And, the old adage, you hear a lie long enough, eventually some people are going to begin to believe it. I mean, let's face it, none of the folks alive today ever were here during the abolition of slavery. They weren't here.
Wait, are you sure? Are you sure Nancy Pelosi wasn't here?
Well, there may be a couple of exceptions to that. But other than one or two people, I don't know of anyone else that was here. And so, what they tend to believe, Matt, is what they hear over and over and over and over. And the Democrats have become masters at understanding that the culture war and the political war, among anything else, is also a rhetorical war. And so they push this rhetoric upon us over and over and over relentlessly to the point that people begin to believe it. And that's where we are now. And I think Republicans need to wise up to that tactic and understand we've got to push back with truth. The Democratic Party is the party of racism historically, no question about that. It is the Republican Party whose history has nothing to do with racism, but the abolition of racism and the position of equality and justice for all. That is the history of the Republican Party, quite the opposite of the Democratic Party. And we need to be very purposeful in our rhetoric in that regard.
So your whole case to be the next Secretary of State of Georgia is hinged to this idea of voter ID and voter verification and following the rules on voting, something that the incumbent Secretary of State, I still refuse to say his name, he makes me so angry, didn't do. The status of this consent decree that essentially allowed people to vote illegally through the mail by not having their signature ever verified. When you're Secretary of State, I assume that thing gets burned in the parking lot.
Absolutely. Listen, we are a government that operates upon the consent of the governed. And that consent is primarily, not exclusively, but primarily voiced and given power through the ballot box. And if the time ever comes where the voice of the people to vote with a fair, honest election is compromised, then we as a country lose all the right that we, the people, the governed, have in this country. And what happened in Georgia is inexcusable. It is maddening. The Secretary of State's office is a train wreck currently in Georgia. And what has been allowed through the consent decree to upend our election process in Georgia has got to be turned around. And so that really is what is driving me to get involved in this. There is no greater single issue when it comes to our system of governance than free and fair, honest elections. And we've got to maintain that at all costs.
Jody Hice, you've led on so many issues while you've been in Congress. You have a stellar voting record with the American Conservative Union. You're always at CPAC preaching the message. Tell us your reaction to President Trump going to the heart of the calamity on the border as you see these events unfold and you see the positive impact his announced trip and the fact that he's down there has had. What's your reaction today?
Listen, everything rises or falls on leadership. We know that. And currently, our country has an enormous vacuum of leadership. And as a result, we have the Biden border crisis. We have the Democratic crime crisis. We have the Democratic Biden economic crisis and inflation. We've lost our energy independence, all due to the lack of leadership. And here we have President Trump going to the border yet again, carrying the leadership mantle of this country upon his shoulders continually. And that is one reason so many tens and tens of millions of people love and respect him. He is a leader who has done what he said he would do, and he continues to lead, even though he's not in the White House right now. Just a phenomenal individual.
What would you compare this moment to? We have inflation. I'm not going to age you, Jody Heiss. You can tell the viewers your age if you wish to, but I'm not asking you. But we have inflation, like you said, out of control. You have American independence on energy, which has now been returned back to dependence on the Middle East and a focus on the Middle East. We have this crime wave. And there's this perception that Washington's just broken beyond repair. Does this not sound a little bit like your former Georgian president, Jimmy Carter?
Hey, it's very similar, except I would say it's even worse now.
Yeah.
I think arguably Jimmy Carter loved America. He wanted the best for America. He just was horrible at leadership and horrible at making decisions. It's concerning now that we have members here like the squad that honestly people scratch their head and say, do these people even love our country? We're watching a push towards Marxism, a push towards government takeover of our lives, a push towards rewriting history and eradicating our Constitution, our Declaration, and some of these basic principles that literally have distinguished this from every other country in the world, and it has made us the envy of the world. Why would we attack those things? But these days, there's a movement to go towards socialism and Marxism, and worse yet, to cancel, to destroy the lives of anyone who opposes that type of movement. And so it's a frightful time. It's a time, though, Matt, that we can't lose. I mean, we're in the fight of our life for this country right now. We've got to give it everything we have. The stakes are too high.
Well, thanks for being a leader in that fight. I liked what you said about Jimmy Carter. You know, he served honorably in the Navy. He was somebody who was a proud and private Christian who continues to do good works for underprivileged. There's many things, and you got to give him credit for we haven't seen Middle East peace since Jared Kushner and Donald Trump, but previously it was Jimmy Carter who got that done. So there's much to give credit to Jimmy Carter for, even though he was a failed president, but nobody ever questioned whether or not he agreed with like the things that made America great, to borrow a line from Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. And this is the question that voters have today, which is this modern day Democratic Party, which has embraced socialism and Marxism, which is why CPAC says it's America versus socialism. We say that because we don't believe the whole concept of America can exist with a socialist party in charge of its government. If you agree with me, Jody Heiss, even though you're not going to be in the United States House of Representatives or in the Senate, because you'll be the Secretary of State of Georgia, making sure that we have fair rules in elections going into 2024. You think the Republicans are going to have a good day in the House and Senate come next November?
I absolutely do. I absolutely do. And here's part of the reason why, Matt. We up here, especially in D.C., and Democrats up here are different from Democrats in Georgia by and large. I can tell you that Democrats in Georgia across the state are scratching their heads at this Democratic Party, who has a worldview that is contrary to that which America has been founded on. And the battle up here is between two worldviews, really. You've got the Republican Party on one side pushing the limited government, maximum freedom, our American principles. You have the Democratic Party with a different worldview of socialism and Marxism. And at the end of the day, these two cannot coexist. But I would tell you, the American people are going to reject soundly this worldview of socialism and Marxism and government takeover of our lives. And I believe at the end of the day, we are going to have one awesome about face in this next election, both in the House and the Senate and state legislators all across the country. I think people are going to soundly reject what the Democrats are trying to do to us.
And I think who else is going to reject what the radicalized socialist Dems are doing are going to be a lot of Democratic voters, like you say, in the state of Georgia. Democrats, people have been Democrats their whole lives, that just think attacking cops is too much, trying to defund cops in the military is too much. Trying to say that every hero of our past is racist and terrible is simply too much. And we appreciate, Jody Hice, it takes a lot of courage to run for office. It takes a lot of courage to take the attacks. You're going right in the middle of the storm on this question of voter ID and making sure that we follow the rules on voting, and we honor you for doing it.
Well, thank you so much. Listen, we're all in this together. This is our country, and we're all in this battle together, but I'm honored to be in this role here in Congress, and hopefully in the next chapter, moving on to Secretary of State in Georgia, and just ask people to pray for their prayer support, as well as their support otherwise. This is our country. This is a time for everyone to stand up and make a difference.
Amen, Jody Hice. Thanks for what you're doing. And we're going to be right back to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled, with Terry Schilling, who runs the American Principles Project. He's going to tell us the good things he's up to. We'll be right back.
Max, come on, off the bed, bud. Oh, hey, let me introduce myself. My name is... Dad! And proud of it. Being a dad is the most important job in the world. Grace, let's roll. We build tree houses together. Hey, no cookies for breakfast. We tell amazing jokes and we play the best prank. Reagan, Spider. We introduce them to the best movies. Bobby, do the truffle shuffle. Our kids love us. But you know what? We love them more. We work hard for them. We help them through the scraped knees, stupid homework, and the breakups. Hope you're not texting a boy. Being a dad is about having fun. Hot stuff coming through, wife and the coffee. But it's also about sacrificing. And as dads, we wouldn't have it any other way. But you know what? Politicians are making it harder to be awesome. They're teaching our kids that America is evil, and instead of protecting our kids online, they're protecting the porn companies. Screen time's up, Bob. And now, they're trying to destroy our daughter's sports by allowing boys to compete against them. So what are we as parents to do to help stop this madness? We do what every other group does. We organize and we engage in politics. Who's looking out for America's families? Seniors have the AARP, and gun owners have the NRA. Nice aim, Max. But where do families turn when politicians are causing them problems? They turn to American Principles Project. We're the only group organizing parents and families to help elect good pro-family politicians and unelect the bad guys. We think that politicians should pay a price when they hurt families, and we want to protect the good pro-family guys from all of the anti-family organizations out there. If you love being a dad, or even if you just care about the American family, then join APP today. We're organizing parents to make it easier to get married, have babies, and protect our kids. Elections are important. They determine the future of our country. And we've got to save America. But in order to save America, we've got to save the family.
Welcome back to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. This is a solo Matt Schlapp, as my partner in crime and in life, Mercedes Schlapp, has taken two of our young girls down to see, as they would say, their abuelitas in Miami, Florida. So I'm sorry that the more popular part of this tandem is not here today, but I'm trying to overcompensate for my lack of charisma with these great guests. And as I go into a conversation with Terry Schilling, our next guest, I'm shamelessly hawking our merchandise that's on our website at conservative.org. You can say our coffee mug, or you can drink anything you want out of it. Can't cancel the USA. And it's got the CPAC logo on it. And of course, you know what this logo is. That's just our big CPAC logo. This is our koozie with conservative on the back. Actually, what we have found is you like buying our stuff. So we're going to come out with more and more options. And we hope so many of you will also come out to be at CPAC in Dallas. We are literally just a week and a couple of days away from that event starting. It's going to be smashing. If you are getting in the doldrums from Biden inflation and Biden crime and an open border and stores still telling you must wear a mask or asking you a lot of personal health questions to see if you can walk down the aisles, come, take a break and hang out with your conservative friends. In Dallas, Texas, for CPAC, go to our website at conservative.org to get information. And who better to talk about all this with than one of our great board members, Terry Schilling, who runs the American Principles Project. Terry, thanks for being with us again on CPAC Now.
Anytime, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you here again. You're going to be with us in Dallas. There's so many interesting things happening in the country. One of the reasons why we're really glad you're coming to Dallas is you've launched this brand new campaign, which is more than a campaign, it's really a cause. Can you tell our viewers what you're up to?
Right. It's very simple, Matt. What we're doing is we're organizing parents and family advocates in politics to make politicians pay a price when they hurt our kids and they hurt our families. It's a model that's kind of based off of the NRA. Instead of guns, though, and gun owners, we're organizing parents and in politics to protect our kids. The assaults on our kids, especially as it pertains to our schools, have never been greater. You look at what the schools are teaching our kids. It's no longer Common Core, right? I miss the days when we were debating about Common Core math.
I wish it was Common Core.
But now you've got common racism with this critical race theory. They're teaching our kids
or common communism.
Yes, yeah. It is a form of Marxism. It's all related to the identity politics. It's absolutely toxic. And the only way that we're going to fix this is by getting parents more engaged in politics and holding politicians accountable. Matt, you and I have been in politics for a long time. You've been around for about 60 or 70 years longer than me in politics. But
nice one.
But we both know that politicians only care about one thing, and that's their reelection. And that's the only thing they're going to respond to. So we've got to extract a price when they hurt families or when they teach our kids that America's evil or that they're racist or confuse them about all this gender craziness.
So how can people sign up to participate in your project to strengthen the family?
Very simple. It's just savethefamily.app. So www.savethefamily.app. There's a fun little video up there. It's like 2 minutes. It's with me and my family explaining the joys and greatness of fatherhood, but also all the threats and attacks that we have on our kids. So check it out. We're asking people to join by simply contributing $25. We're going to provide you with a lot of resources and supplies and anything you need to know or to do to get involved in politics. We're going to be there for you and help take back the system.
People ask me a lot, Terry, I'm sure they ask you, are we winning or are we losing? The news on television, what we read, is all so woke and toxic, and it just seems like there aren't any conservatives left or people who really love the country left in any real numbers. Are you pessimistic?
I'm very optimistic, actually, Matt. And the reason I'm optimistic is because you had all of these viral videos coming out of parents and grandparents and all types of family advocates showing up at these school boards, even in Loudoun County. Last week in Loudoun County, which is a deeply blue part of the country, it was flooded with over 500 parents. It got so contentious that the school board ended the meeting early and they started arresting parents who were simply exercising their First Amendment rights. That is actually a sign of hope for me. And the reason is because it's parents who are taking a risk. They're standing up for their kids. They're sick and tired of this stuff. I think we have something that could be bigger than the Tea Party, as long as we have politicians who are willing and ready to carry the torch on these issues.
Yeah, but what I worry about, with the Tea Party came a lot of persecution from the then Obama administration. For those of us, you run a group that's fairly aggressive. I run a group that you're on the board of here at ACU that's fairly aggressive. Do you think that they're going to do the same thing to us that they did to the Tea Party groups that all found themselves getting audited by the IRS and harassed by the government?
Look, the Biden administration and things that are coming out from the Obama administration are all very, very, very concerning. So look, the thing about the Democrats and what they've done is they have weaponized every single federal agency that they possibly can to enact their agenda and to punish their political foes. And, the thing is, we just have to keep fighting. We can't let any of that distract us or intimidate us. Yeah, they might put us in prison, but there's only going to be just for political persecution. And, there's always going to be a pushback. This is like a pendulum. It's swung so far to the left for the last few years. The Democrats have really overreached. there's going to be a point, and it's starting to boil over, where the American people are just fed up and they're sick and tired of it. But I think the real key here is winning the elections, and that will be a check on them, and it'll keep them in line from all of their aggression, I think.
Well, let's talk about these elections. You're a real political guy. You guys get involved in a lot of these races. And you and I compare notes on tactics that work and don't work. It almost seemed like under Donald Trump, the Democrats' embrace of radicalism almost had no impact. It's like they're taking these policy positions you and I both know to be very, very extreme. There's no way that a majority of Americans support them, but they almost seem like they were bulletproof because they were protected by this kind of constant Trump hatred. Now that that Trump hatred kind of armor is gone, as he's no longer the president, does it expose the radicalism and give us a chance like we've really never had before? Or will they congeal around their Trump hate because he's now back on the field? What's your take of all this?
Well, I think that because it's the Democrats who are now in power for the most part, they're enacting their agenda. And so when you're actually enacting your agenda...
By the way, Terry, they enact all of their agenda. They don't just pick the stuff that's more popular. They just do it all.
No, that's right. They're totally different than Republicans. You can't get Republicans to do anything when they're in power. I mean, Trump did a lot of great things. Don't get me wrong. But Republicans are always so much more timid and cautious. But these guys are enacting a really radical agenda, from critical race theory to 1619 to the tax stuff that they're pushing through, the spending, the inflation. It's out of control. And so it's harder for the mainstream media to cover up for them, because the American people know that it's the Democrats that are in power and that Trump's not in there anymore. And so there's no more boogeyman. The only people that are left holding the bag that can be blamed for this are the Democrats who are enacting this harmful agenda. So I'm hopeful, but you're going to see a lot of disinformation from the mainstream media. I mean, look at how long they're carrying out this January 6th thing. They're calling it an insurrection. And last I checked, Matt, an insurrection, people usually bring like weapons and guns and bombs. I mean, it's like a serious thing, but none of that happened there. So it was tame compared to what BLM and Antifa did to our country over the summer. So,
and by the way, Terry, the people on the 6th of January, as much as you and I condemn the violence, people shouldn't be like rushing the House floor and breaking windows. That being said, most of those people who the FBI aggressively, through surveillance, found photos of and put in jail, they are still in jail. Most of the people, the purveyors of the violence, the mortal violence, where more than a handful of cops are killed, buildings are burned, St. John's Church, the president's church, is bombed. We lose control of Lafayette Square. The president's taken to the bunker. Chicago, Seattle, Portland, dead people, no businesses can open. Those people are bailed out of jail like the next day. It's like they did nothing wrong. How could we have both of those at the same time?
It's absolutely nuts, Matt. But it gets back to the point that Democrats have weaponized every government agency that they possibly can. And this isn't just at the federal level with the Department of Justice and the FBI and now the CIA and the military. They're all gone woke. This is at the local level. This is at the state level. The district attorneys, George Soros has invested a lot of money in these district attorney races because they have a lot of power and they can influence the culture in a lot of ways. Look, the Democrats get to have it both ways because they own the mainstream media, basically. But the thing is, the American people are very smart. They do. It's not a joke. But the American people are very smart, and we just have to get them the information. We have to contact them directly. And that's why you and I, why our jobs at APP and the American Conservative Union, CPAC, so important, because we're going right to the voters. We're not trying to go through the mainstream media to get our messages filtered out. We're taking our message and our policies right to the American people, and it's powerful.
Sure are.
It's what the founders were counting on.
Look, we're reaching about 500,000 people a week on this show on CPAC Now called America UnCanceled. The Bill Walton Show, which airs every Monday at 7 p.m. Bill Walton, who's also on the board of ACU with Terry, his show has similar reach. So, it's pretty impressive that people are looking to get information and they don't want it to be the same boilerplate stuff. that they see on television. And part of this is we're willing to talk about the things that they care about. And one of the things they really care about is making sure their kids and grandkids don't grow up to be Marxists. Terry, if someone called you up and said, I'm going to give you $1 billion because I believe in your project to try to save the family, by the way, I hope that happens, what would be the 3 things you would do with that money immediately?
I would build the biggest pro-family movement ever in Virginia right now to win the governor's race here and to build more momentum.
Why does that matter? Why does that matter? Will he be that much of a transformational governor?
Well, it's important that while this movement's happening, right, you have thousands of parents across the country that are standing up and they're upset about the critical race theory stuff that's going on in our schools. There's a movement building. And if we can get Glenn Youngkin elected and prove and show that, this was the issue that brought him over the finish line, was parents and families who were fighting against critical race theory and the transgender madness and the CRT stuff. If we can do that, it's going to create a lot of momentum going into the midterms. Virginia's a blue state, right? It's not a red state. It's not a purple state anymore. It's a blue state. So if you win that, if you swing that blue state to the red column using these pro-family issues, it's going to send a message to every other Republican candidate that this is how you win. And by the way, it'll send a message to the Democrats that this issue makes you very vulnerable, even in blue areas like Virginia. So that's the first thing I do. The other thing I would do is I would, well, we're already doing this right now, but we're building a database of all of the school boards across the country, when their meetings are, when their elections are, who the bad guys are in their school board, and how much money they spend per pupil. And we're going to have it so that you can go to our website and type in your address and find out all of this beautiful information and hold these guys accountable at the school board level. Thirdly, I'd spend the rest of it in between the 2022 midterm election and then the 2024 presidential, probably helping out Ron DeSantis. I really like that guy. He's been great on a whole host of issues, and he really gets the moment that we're in.
So he's your candidate in 2024? Is that what, are you breaking news here?
No. We're not endorsing yet, but I do really like him. I've been the most impressed with him. He's a natural. He understands these issues. He's comfortable in his own skin. He's comfortable defending tricky things because he really believes in it. And he's been very hopeful, and we're lucky to have him.
Well, we're lucky to have you, Terry. Thanks for being in the fight. Thanks for being in the cause. And thanks for your leadership, and thanks for your help as we get close to this great CPAC conference in Dallas. I think it's going to be really important. One of the aspects that we're adding to this CPAC, which we haven't talked about publicly, is we have a lot of people that you would describe as donors who are coming and saying, hey, what do I need to fund now that America is in this really dark place? What do I need to fund to try to get us back to our foundational principles? And you're a part of that, and we appreciate that. I think our back is against the wall, but maybe we can spring off that wall and start to really make a difference. I put me in the hopeful category with you, Terry.
Yep. No, we've got a lot to fight for. It's going to be a lot of work, but we can definitely get it done.
All right, Terry Schilling, keep up the great work at American Principles Project. For our viewers, one more time, tell them what they can do to help you in your great cause to protect the American family.
First thing to do is go to www.savethefamily.app and sign up, donate $25 a year, and we will put you to work. We're going to make sure you know all the threats against your family. We have a really big report that is coming out in the coming months called Threats to the American Family, and our members are going to be the first ones to get it. So tune in and sign up, and we look forward to seeing you guys soon.
I just want to say one thing. I talked to Sean Filer, who's both on our board and works with you at APP, and he always tells me, and I've heard him say it publicly, that if we really want to be free market and we don't want the government to be involved in every aspect of our lives, the only way that works is if we have strong families. And even if you're somebody that says, well, family policy, I don't really consider myself a social conservative. Is this all about pushing a religion? Think about it this way, that if you don't want to have all the social safety net, you don't want the government having all these big budgets and all these huge bills, spending bills they pass through Congress, the best way to counter that is to have families where kids are taught these basic lessons, where they learn a work ethic, where they don't make these big cataclysmically terrible moral decisions early in their lives and kind of screw up their lives early. And then it's amazing how they can learn to take care of themselves and the people they love. Would you agree with that, Terry?
100%. And the data is very clear. The kids from the never married and cohabitating households, they're all progressives. And the kids from the married and even the divorced households, they vote more American and more conservative than the never married and cohabitating people. So yeah, no, the data is very clear.
I always think it's interesting. You look at Hollywood and you look at how they live, have 95% of them live their lives, and you're like, it never ends good, Terry. It doesn't end with long-lasting marriages and happy people. It always seems to result in a lot of sadness. So I pick the happiness route. Okay, that's what I'm going to choose.
Me too.
Terry Schilling, thanks for all the great work. We're going to be right back to CPAC, Now America Uncanceled, after this short break. Welcome back to CPAC Now America Uncanceled. I loved our guest today, Jody Hice. If you can, help him become the next Secretary of State of Georgia, and Terry Schilling, who's leading this effort to make sure that we have a political operation to have policies that will allow American families to prosper. As Sean Filer, who is closely associated with that group, always says, without strong families, we need big government. And since we don't want big government, it seems to make sense that we have strong families. I know I'm doing my best to have a strong family. Some days I feel like I'm doing a better job than other days, but we'll be discussing all these issues at CPAC Dallas, and I hope that you saw in the last 24 hours that we have a big announcement. Donald Trump Jr. is going to be opening things up with the Lieutenant Governor of Texas, Dan Patrick, who's just a great public servant. On Friday, we've actually taken the agenda at CPAC and we're starting earlier because we just have so many great speakers that want to be there, and we're really appreciative that Don Jr. is going to be able to be with us again. His message is always complete with a few attacks on the left, which we're cool with, and a lot of energy and enthusiasm. Nobody has ever accused Donald Trump Jr. of being low energy. And since we're talking about the Trumps, I guess you might say CPAC has got its own red cap. And we want you to go to our website and look at all of our new merch. It'll all be highlighted at a big booth in our hub at CPAC that will have all this new stuff that we're selling. Look, I think the key is why am I talking about a hat? And I'll wear this hat. Why am I talking about this hat? It takes a certain amount of courage in the swamp to wear a hat like this. It takes a certain amount of courage to wear a MAGA hat in the swamp. It takes less courage in a red state to have boisterous bumper stickers and the kind of bumper stickers I like. And that's kind of what's going on in this country. It's very red or it's very blue, and there's still some purple, maybe even less purple than there used to be. And the reason why CPAC plays such an important role for people is that it especially allows students to come to a place where they can meet other people that are in similar situations. We'll be sending our first child off to college next year, and it's a little bit of a scary thing for a parent, especially with the number one. And we know that not all the influences on the college campus are positive influences anymore, especially with teachers that have gone so left. And what we're trying to do here at CPAC is just give those kids all the tools and really the support they need to go out there and just be themselves. They're all going to live their own unique lives. Maybe some will even, at the end of that process, turn out not to have the same kind of politics most of us have. We allow that in America. That's called pluralism, right? That's called living the life that you want to lead. And I'm all for that, even when people have views and make decisions that I wouldn't or I don't even agree with. But what we can't do is recede so much in this cultural fight that's going on around this country that we cede the kids and the students to the left because we see what they want to do to them. They want to turn them into people that hate this country and hate the values that have made it great. And we're going to be doing just the opposite at CPAC, and we're going to be doing just the opposite on the show. It's really doing great. I think we're going to be going to the next level and the next level. You can't see in this room, which we're putting this show on, but we have a lot of talented new people on the team that are making little changes to the show to make it even better, and we'd love to get your feedback. Feel free to reach out to us, reach out to me, and let us know the kind of guests you want, and let us know other changes you'd like to see in the show. I just consider this in real time training for how we can all work together to defend America. And that's really what the purpose of the show is. Yes, we have some fun along the way, but the real purpose is to get everybody engaged in this great fight to refound America, on the values for which she was established. Not the same America as was 250 years ago, because we've made many improvements, including on this question of civil rights, but we've also taken many steps back, including in the fact that we don't seem to appreciate the idea of the role that God plays in society. We talked to Terry Schilling about the role that families play in society, and this crazy idea that we should somehow pierce through the innocence of childhood and teach our kids that they shouldn't love their country, they don't know what gender they are, and they should generally be dissatisfied to be alive at this point in time. I try to teach my kids just the opposite. They should be so appreciative for all the things they have and all the gifts that they've been given. Maybe if we all just took a breath and were a little more grateful about all the great gifts that we have and the opportunity to breathe oxygen and be alive and make a difference, maybe things would just be a little bit better. Thanks for tuning into the show today. I'll have Mercy by my side here, or I'll be by her side at the next available opportunity, which is going to be in a couple days, and we look forward to seeing you all at CPAC, either through your computer screens as you live stream it from our website at conservative.org, or you there live. It's going to be a heck of a show, and of course, President Trump will bring the House down with some, I think, incredibly needed comments on the Sunday of CPAC. Y'all have a great day, and thanks for tuning in to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. And we'll see you